Well, welcome everyone. My name is Patrick Burke. I am the Good Jobs Challenge program lead here at the U.S. Economic Development Administration. I'm joined by my colleagues, Justin Tooley, the ARP director here at EDA, and Carla Garrett, our program officer here on the Good Jobs Challenge here as well. Excited to talk to you all about the FY24 Good Jobs Challenge NOFO. This is being recorded, so if you have colleagues or peers who are interested in learning more about this, we'll be sure to post this on our website in the coming days, and this will be a good reference point for folks in the future too, if you're ever wondering a question or a comment. I'm going to walk through some of the components of what we're going to talk through today. One, we're going to talk about the Good Jobs Challenge and the history of it, a little bit of context for how we've gotten to this point, as well as go over the FY24 NOFO. My colleagues will also be manning the chat, so if you do have questions, we'll do our best to respond to those. Know that we also have a number of resources on our website, including a fairly lengthy FAQs. So if there are questions that we have not answered, you didn't get to ask today, encourage you to go take a look at the FAQs page, and we'll be sure to drop that in the chat over the course of today's session. So quickly, in terms of the overview of the Good Jobs Challenge here, so the original Good Jobs Challenge announced in 2021 and announced the awardees in 2022 was a $500 million investment in regional workforce training systems. It was really designed on this sectoral-based approach of making sure there was strong alignment between training as well as employers, so making that strong connection, and the focus being on a focus on good jobs. This was an ARP program, so coming out of COVID, significantly focused on serving underserved communities or communities that had been impacted by the pandemic. You'll also see that as a part of this program, it was very employer driven. So talking about that alignment between training and placement and making sure that the folks who go through our programs are not just getting a credential, but also getting a good job. And you'll see that kind of focus throughout both the original Good Jobs Challenge as well as the one that we just announced last week. You'll see there at the bottom, the original Good Jobs Challenge, at the top was 500 million. This is a little bit smaller at $25 million. But the idea is that we're going to scale this in certain types of ways to focus it a bit more, knowing that we just have a slightly different amount of funding to offer this year. So we're looking at 5 to 8 grantees with awards ranging between that $1 and $8 million amount. But more to come on that. I mentioned up top that this is based on a sectoral partnership model, which means that the partners involved here, there's a backbone organization that sits at the center of the Good Jobs Challenge award, who then coordinates a variety of different stakeholders and partners and brings them to the table. That, first and foremost includes employer partners and industry partners, but just as importantly includes organized labor, workforce boards, community colleges, and a whole network of other partners who are going to support the industry in which you are working. To give you a sense of what the original Good Jobs Challenge looked like in terms of the stakeholders and grantees who were awarded, it really varied. Whether you were a union or a state government or a chamber of commerce, we really listened to the applicants in terms of telling us in your region who is going to be the best partner to lead that regional workforce training system and to lead that sector partnership. And in different contexts, it's going to look different. In some places, it might be the United Way. In other places, it might be the local HBCU. We defer to you in terms of you telling us and making the case of which is that partner for your region. In terms of the industries, similar to identifying the type of entity that leads that project, we also put it to the grantee to help determine what are the industries that you want to focus on. Coming out of COVID, obviously not surprising that healthcare was one of those primary focuses, despite knowing that, healthcare is typically one of those industries that needs lots of workers. That would probably be still the case if we were to put out a NOFO similar today. But we also see things like climate resilience. We see things like construction, manufacturing, really ranging a whole host of different industries that grantees and applicants wanted to work in. So what does this notice of funding opportunity look like? How is this slightly different? Now, I'll say just up front, a lot of the information that I just shared is going to be related and carry over to the new notice of funding opportunity, but with some special additions. So the purpose remains the same, designing these regional workforce training systems. The key focus here will be that it is aligned to key technology focus areas as identified in the CHIPS and Science Act. So I'll spend some more time talking about that in a moment, but we're focused really on that design process, making sure you're ready for implementation, and then the implementation process, getting to that point where you're training, completing, and placing individuals in good jobs through these programs. What does the core design look like? Again, there's that backbone organization who's driving that work in that key technology focus area and translating those folks into good jobs. Now, the original good jobs components had these criteria here for eligible entities. Those are still the same. All of the eligible entities that were eligible under the original good jobs are also eligible under this second good jobs. There are some new eligibility criteria, some that align, some that are new. So the original ones around the SEDS alignment and EDA's investment priorities, those were true in the original good jobs. They're still true in this one. What is new is because we're using a different authorizing authority is that one, you're going to have a matching share. There is a matching requirement that's connected to this round of funding, and there also is a requirement to meet the distress criteria. There's a whole bunch of information in both the FAQs and the NOFO itself on what the matching requirements are, as well as the distress criteria. I would highly recommend checking out those two components because they'll be essential when you are applying. One of the other components that is really important that we talk about good jobs, what does a good job actually mean? So for those of you familiar with the original Good Jobs Challenge, that at the time was issued prior to the Good Jobs Principles. So at the time, we came out with what our definition of a good job, which was prevailing wage plus benefits or a union job. Under this, we're actually aligning even more closely with the Good Jobs Principles, which have been issued since the original Good Jobs was posted. So for the new NOFO, we're aligning with this Good Jobs Principles, which is a partnership and agreement between the Department of Labor and the Department of Commerce around what are some of these fundamental components of what constitutes a good job. And that includes a stable, predictable wage, the ability to form unions, equitable opportunities to progress in your career, all components that suggest that this is a good job for an individual going forward. Now, the other key component that's new is these key technology focus areas. As I mentioned, this is something identified within the CHIPS and Science Act. If you've applied for a tech hub in the past, you'll be familiar with some of these industries. There's a whole bunch of them listed here, but what I will say is that they can be fairly broad. They range from everything from advanced communications to biotech to artificial intelligence to robotics, but they also include things like advanced energy, manufacturing, things surrounding industries that we're all fairly familiar with. So what we are asking, though, is that for any of the applications that are submitted must align with one of these key technology focus areas. These are listed within the NOFO itself. You'll find these in the FAQs. And if you really want to get in the weeds, it's also going to be within the specific legislation in CHIPS and Science. So what are we funding under this program? A few specific things. I talked about the program design as well as the implementation. So the design piece, that's really, we're making sure that you have all of the partners in place already, but maybe you need some help designing some of the curriculum, optimizing how you're going to roll out some of the wraparound supports that are going to be covered in this program, providing some of that capacity building for some of the institutions that you're partnering with, all of that stuff that's primed to get you ready for implementation. And then the implementation phase funds, that's really going to be used to actually offer that training, provide those wraparound supports, and help to make sure that the individuals who are leaving your programs are getting placed into good jobs within a reasonable period of time. So what are the training models that we're using? What you'll see on the left is a host of different earn and learn models that we're considering. Everything from registered apprenticeship programs, to labor management training programs and a whole host of other ideas or models that are designed to make sure that there isn't an opportunity cost for an individual who wants to go back and get additional training. We'll also see that what we're looking for from employers, because this is obviously on both sides. We're interested in what the folks are getting trained in, but also interested in what the employers are willing to commit. Now, obviously, work and learn opportunities, register apprenticeships are among the top opportunities because that allows an individual to continue learning while getting paid and not having to make that cost benefit sacrifice. Now, the other components, like that's not the only way that an employer can commit to supporting these programs. That includes other opportunities like commitments to hire, offer benefits, donate in-kind staff equipment or equipment and staff time, and serving in an advisory capacity. One of the things that we're going to be keenly interested is how sophisticated, how committed are these employers to this work? What we don't want to be doing is training individuals for jobs that aren't there. We want to make sure that there are those jobs that are there and at the table. The employers are being considered from a very early stage and are bought into the projects so that when somebody walks out of your doors, they're walking into a job. So this is just to give you a sense of what an applicant might look like. This here is an example of somebody working in the robotics and autonomy industry, somebody who's seeing that need in their region. There's a need for mechatronics technologists. They're using a work and learn model that's represented there with providing some wraparound supports in the areas of public transportation. And it's aligned to that key technology focus area that's listed in the CHIPS and Science Act. So in terms of what you're seeing on the left, what's represented on the right is, yes, this is aligning with some of the good jobs principles. There is that earn and learn component that is satisfied here. There's some strategies for providing wraparound supports, and it's aligned to the key technology focus areas. Those would all be things that suggest that this is a well-aligned proposal. Now, admittedly, there's going to be much more detail requested than just these 3 bullets, but to give you a sense of what we're looking for, that's here. And I'll also go to this next one. This is maybe one that folks are maybe more familiar with in the predictive healthcare technologies and some of the industries that support it. So looking for folks in non-traditional degree pathways in the healthcare sector. So looking for rad techs and biotech technicians. There's some good letters of support from employer partners that suggest that there are hiring commitments there on the back end. And again, this is in a key technology focus area. So meeting those things on the right, again, that suggests that this is a well-aligned proposal. In terms of the application components, we're going to certainly spend more time on this in future webinars and going through some of the technical assistance components, but these are going to be the key components of what applicant is going to need to do in order to submit a letter, submit an application. I'm not going to go through these in great detail, but what I will say is this is obviously due September 27th. We'll have several webinars coming up in the coming weeks. Around what is it to actually apply for these programs and fill out some of these forms. I will also say this is submitted on Edge. For those of you unfamiliar with Edge, that is our platform on our website. So that's how you will submit. For those of you familiar with Salesforce, it is a Salesforce platform. So it'll look fairly similar to that, but that's where you're going to be logging in, completing your applications on there, and submitting accordingly. A little bit about the scoring rubric, because you're probably wondering, well, what's getting points, what's not? How do I emphasize components here? You'll see that a lot of these components are fairly similar to the rubrics from the original Good Jobs Challenge, but you'll see here, we're still keenly interested in the impact and feasibility. What is going to result in the most folks getting good jobs as a result of this program from those significantly underrepresented communities, but also what's feasible. Are you actually able to do this within the scale and scope of these projects? Equity, as it remains a key priority focus for EDA, is also represented here. We want to make sure that the folks that you are serving are those communities who have been historically underserved. We're looking for what is the readiness of the sectoral partnership? Are the employers at the table? These are all components that we're looking for as we're going through this program assessment. I'll also note, you'll see here, and I'll talk more about it in just a moment, there are 5 points allotted for the Tech Hub's benefit of designation. So what that means is that if you were part of one of the consortia that were selected as a tech hub or designated as a tech hub, you have the ability to earn 5 additional points in consideration. So what does that look like? So there's these questions here that will be in the actual application that asks you to answer to what extent you're a part of this tech hub and how this builds on some of the work that's in that tech hub. Now, you still have to earn these points. These are not just given if you are part of a consortium, but it does acknowledge that you are part of an entity that has already been verified as a tech hub, and we want to acknowledge and reward some of that work if it's aligned well. At that point, I think that those are the main components of this work. Other things I didn't touch on that I think are important is just the last thing. We're looking at these programs to be about 3 years in length. So if you're wondering about how much time should we be considering, we're really thinking about it in the 3-year term, using that first 6 months to a year to get through that design phase potentially, and then using those remaining 2 years for implementation. Now, if you get to implementation sooner than that 1 year, 6 months, great. You're not required to have a program design phase. If you're ready for implementation from day one, that's fine. But that gives you just a sense of what we're looking for. But I'll pause there. If Justin or Carla or anybody has anything that I maybe missed that you want me to make sure I touch on.
No, Patrick, I think you did great. If other people have questions in the chat, we're more than happy to answer them in the next few minutes. I think there was a question about on our website, we've got a few resources, and then in parentheses, we have expected dates for like our budget template and our checklist. We will put those up. We'll get the budget template up there as soon as possible. I think that's done. But then the other resources probably will be at the end of next week.
Yes. And I'll also mention that we do have a inbox that we're receiving and answering questions. That's goodjobschallenge@eda.gov. So we'll be sure to put that in the chat as well. If you have a question you're not feeling like you're finding the answer to, you can email us there and we'll do our best to get back to you as quickly as possible. And I will also mention this is just the first of a series of webinars that we're going to host. We'll do some more technical webinars around how to actually submit, what are some of the forms, using Edge, using the budget template. So if you do have questions that you feel like weren't answered here in the most technical sense, we'll certainly be providing those webinars in the weeks to come.
So there's a question here, Patrick, from Jenny. If the applicant isn't a tech hub, but will engage one as a subrecipient, would that be enough to get the extra points? So there's a lot here to unpack. Do you want me to take a stab at it, Patrick, or do you want
to? Go for it. Yeah.
So, the tech hub is a big group of people in a consortium that covers a geographic area that is trying to advance one of the focused areas, right? But there's a lot of different players in the tech hub in this consortium. We are looking to be affiliated with the tech hub. Your entity, which could be any player of our eligible entities, must be a part of the tech hub consortium. It doesn't have to be sort of the lead entity of the tech hub. You just need to be a part of their consortium. What you'll have to demonstrate to us is that this project, this Your Good Jobs Challenge project, will advance the work of that tech hub. Okay. And it's 5 points. It's not a guaranteed 5 points. But it's up to 5 points. Hopefully I answered that question okay. How long does it take to get the login credentials for Edge if we're new to that system? Patrick, that might be something. Do you know off the top of your head?
That should be fairly quick. Like if you're waiting more than a day or so, there may be something wrong, and you can certainly email us and the Salesforce team. We can work on trying to figure out what the issue might be. Great.
Okay, well, I don't think we have to keep everybody. Could you elaborate on the matching requirements? Yes. How about we go to the FAQs for that one, Patrick?
Sure.
FAQ about this.
Let me pull that up here. If you already have it open, you can go
Yeah,
ahead and share, Justin.
I'm working on it.
But in short, it is a 50% match requirement with meeting certain criteria can reduce that amount, but that's listed in the FAQs in greater detail. There it is. You'll see, Justin, if you just drop that in the chat if you're not seeing the chat open right now. And yes, question number 57 in the FAQs. Excellent. Well, not seeing many more questions. Again, please feel free to use that Good Jobs Challenge at eda.gov for any questions that you may have going forward. Please be on the lookout for future webinars that we are hosting. Otherwise, there is not a minimum number of jobs that need to be listed to that question. However, I would emphasize that one of the focuses of these programs is placing individuals into good jobs. That is primarily our focus through this program. So, not that there's a minimum, but I think we would be mindful of the fact that the emphasis on this program is to get folks into good jobs, that you are placing a significant number of folks into them. Wonderful. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch. And please reach out with any questions. Thank you all.